When I consider this rune here, I see to my mind the upper half of a man with his arms raised high to the sky, and his mind risen to the highest, as his arms seemingly direct his vision and concentrate it heavenward. I'm going to go ahead and go through here these runes, and I want to show you a little bit about my mind and how, when I'm reading runes, how I draw further considerations and do as Odin said, which is be led from a word to a word, and from another word unto a deed, which then becomes another deed. So, seeking the good and the intentions of the good and the heart of what is good, we are already going to only allow the good to come to us. So, as we approach the runes or words in general and language and understanding in a heart seeking wholesomeness and truth and light and life and sacredness, we come to find those things manifest. So starting here, I want to show you this aspect of Berkana, Wunjo, Raido, Lagus, and Isa. And there's other runes which we can pull and draw out of these and speak as well. But I want to point out that when you draw these, each one can be drawn with one stroke or one, maybe if you were etching in stone, it's a little different story, but with a pen, there's usually one singular stroke which you can make. Not a single line, but Raido. You don't have to take your pen off the paper. These symbols are also within one another. As you'll see, there's always Isa in Berkana, it's in Wunjo, it's in Raido, it's in Lagus, and it's in many of these symbols. And then you will note that Wunjo is in Berkana, Raido is in Berkana, and then there are these other symbols like Sowelu, which you can find in Raido and Berkana, and it's more visible depending on how it's written. And then there's also a Kano, a fire and a torch that can be found in Berkana and in Raido. So as we are looking at the runes, we're not just looking at the first initial word or letter and its meaning, we're also looking at the meanings within that letter, the things that make that word, and already within that philosophical framework. For instance, nothing I have can Berkana, can really grow or be born of anything and be born, save there was at one point an isolatory process or a isolation or stasis moment. Like when the egg is fertilized and a child is beginning to be born, or the seed is put in the ground, it has an isolation or a stasis phase. Or even certain seeds that have to go through the ice, Isa, and have to be frozen before they can come to the springtime and be born in spring. And then water as well, ice, flows and is melted and turns into water, and water is very important. It's the only thing that allows things to grow. And then in growth seemingly comes and is allowed to be born joy. And one can only really journey and go anywhere if they are growing, and no journey is easy unless one has water, the things they need, not just of sustenance to flow, but the things of heart, mind, spirit, and knowledge to make the journey easy. Lagus is in Raido, so that one must already flow or have water and know how to flow, and even on their journey how to cross water. And that crossing and that knowledge and that ability to have water, to journey with water, cross water and use it in all of its proper forms and not get sick and all these other things, also will allow joy. So that's one way of considering these things, is in a framework of how they are within one another and how we can correlate them or connect them in one consideration. So let's say I draw simply Berkana. That's the only rune I draw when somebody asks me, what can I do today to feel better? And let's say I just draw Berkana. Well, there's lots of things we can do in a day to feel better. joy might not be with us. So we recognize first that that's it. We have to be conscious then. Anything that's growing has to be conscious. Even the plants have to be conscious of the minerals and the sustenance and the temperature and all that, just like we do. We have to be aware of these things. So we have to be aware of what we also don't have. If we don't have joy, and then we have to construct that joy, which is in the light of knowledge. So as we come down here and see Kano, there's fire and light, and I like to flip that. I like to flip and reverse that, and point and realize that you could say that flipping the torch also means the reverse of no light, but at the same time, flipping this little tiny symbol right here and flipping it backwards, we notice that it's in Berkana, and it is also right here. So these symbols are reversed here and here. So the fire and the torch is seemingly emitting out this way in this direction. And it is also then, if we reverse it, emitting forward. So anything that is growing needs to not only, especially if it's us, let's say this Berkana is a person. If we are growing, we need to have the fire and light of knowledge and our corporeal being to be able to enact and effectualize and take in the things without and work with it. And that's the element of fire. And then we have to have knowledge already to do that. So we have to have a fire of mind inside of us, and then the sustenance. We have to have the heart or the energy to do it all as well. So we have to have this. We have to have this already built within us, the fire of mind and the fire of body and spirit, to make even an effectual fire with outside of us in our world. And I mean, heck, if you ever made a fire in the woods and made a fire like somebody who's stranded, you have to have a lot of knowledge. It takes a lot of energy to get to that point, to get the wood and gather it and all these things. So pausing there, kind of just want to point, I know it's a quick little ramble, but there's a lot we can then therefore draw out of this one rune, Berkana, and it's one, or it's many facets of considerations and symbols within this symbol, which are their own symbols, and we find that they all seemingly connect. There's a great importance also then to, when looking at the runes, to see their, I'll put it, their synonyms, their antonyms, and how they oppose one another, how they correlate, and how they agree with each other, like philosophical systems. And you have to really visualize things much more than just these little letters and symbols. That when you're seeing ice, you really have to see ice, and when you think fire, you really have to think fire, and then imagine fire burning ice. And what's that do? Okay, that makes lagoos. That allows water to flow. If I take this little Kano here and greet ice, well, there's going to be a melting, there's going to be a water, there's going to be a flowing, and if that water is flowing, it's going to allow things to Berkana, to be growing. And if things are growing, man can truly take hold of it, and a being can take hold of it, the creatures of the earth. And there's joy, there's beauty in growth, and in the springtime. And that allows all creatures to journey, even the bear to continue its journey from year to year, and man, and all these things to continue from cycle to cycle, to harvest to harvest. And you know, it's curious that, here, it's curious that in Berkana we have this here. We have this. Oh, sorry. We have these Kanos, and Yera also, year, has them that cross like that. I'm trying to write it while looking on the phone. So, there we go, that's better. So it has them crossing like this. So again, and then it's so we can see in Berkana is growth. It's always relative to the seasons, to the years, and to the harvests. And water affects all that too. So again, see things within things, even though they're not there, they're there, and we can find them there. And I just want to leave it on that note. And go ahead and leave questions, comments, considerations, and maybe get to my Instagram at Runic Profunities and go ahead and comment and leave thoughts. Thank you.